I'm out in my very blustery back garden today to tell you that the summer is most definitely over. The autumn is here and the bad weather is just around the corner. So today I'm going to give you my 5 top tips on how to prepare your house and garden ready for winter. I can't wait. I don't know about where you are, but where I am, the days are getting a lot shorter, which means the temperature outside is gradually falling. And when it does rain, it seems to be a lot heavier and more persistent than in the last couple of months as well. So my 5 top tips on preparing your property for winter is really designed to preempt some of those classic problems we all can face during the winter months and maybe sort them out now rather than leaving them until they're a bit of a disaster in the bad weather. So let's start with number 1. There's nothing more important in the winter than your central heating. So if you haven't already run your central heating because it's not cold enough where you are, I would highly recommend putting it on for half an hour and proving to yourself that it still works. Having sat dormant for spring and summer over many months, there's all kinds of problems that can only pop up when you first put it on. So it's probably best to find out sooner rather than later. At this time of year, central heating engineers are not sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. It's more like you need to get in the queue. So the earlier you find out you've got a problem, the better. So before you run it, just check that you've got the right pressure in the system here. It wants to be between 1 and 1.5 bar. Now if you haven't got enough pressure, I'll show you how to fix that. Within the pipework leading to your boiler, you'll find a silver flexible filling loop connection that comes from the main supply with 2 taps, one at each end. To charge the system and increase the pressure, open one tap, it doesn't matter which, then slowly open the other while keeping an eye on the pressure gauge. Close the tap when the pressure is comfortably within the proper range and then close the first tap. So with the pressure set correctly at 1 to 1.5 bar, we can now fire up the boiler. But we also need to make sure that the thermostat in one of the zones is requiring heat, so we can prove to ourselves that we're getting hot radiators and the whole thing's working. So let's fire this up and see what happens. So that looks like good news. The boiler's obviously heating up and the temperature's going up. Now you may find one problem you have with your hot water when you first turn it on. If your boiler is heating up but you're not getting hot water through to your radiators, you may find that you've got a stuck water pump. The water pumps sit there all over summer not moving, and there's that tendency for them to get a little bit sort of calcified up. That doesn't mean to say you need a new water pump, but what you do need to do is persuade it to get around that first half a turn and then it will be okay. And if you've got that problem, I'll show you how to fix it. So I've just isolated my boiler of electricity so there's nothing going through this, and I found my water pump in the bottom right hand corner. Now a lot of water pumps will have a cap on the back end here that you'll have to take off with a large flat-headed screwdriver. This is a very modern one, so I haven't got that. All I've got is a hole in the middle, and if you look down that hole, what you'll see is something that looks like the end of a Phillips type screw. That's actually the middle spindle of the water pump. So if you get the right size screwdriver, I've got a slightly small one here just to fit into this hole, you can actually fit that to the end of the what looks like a screw. Now my pump is not stuck in any way, so I can actually turn that left and right. But if you've got a pump that is stuck, you'll find that that's going to be really stiff, if not wanting to move. But if you can get in there, give it a good push and maybe crack it just half a turn one way or the other, you'll find that when you turn that on, you've got a very good chance of it suddenly working. At number 2 is a job that no one likes but needs to be done, which is clearing out your gutters. After a year of leaves and debris building up in them, because by definition they're open to the elements, they can easily start blocking the flow of water, at which point they can overflow and start damaging brickwork and render, and also causing damp walls, which is really not good news. Here I'm making a little tool to help me clean them. I mark out a semicircle and then cut a half round piece of wood on my bandsaw, just a bit smaller than the diameter of my gutter. I use my bandsaw because it's already set up and it's easy just to turn on and use, but you can use a jigsaw for this, or even a manual fret saw if you're feeling nostalgic. I then simply fix it to a timber batten I have, which is 8 to 10 foot long. I'm lucky here to have an access tower available to use, and would definitely not recommend trying to do this at height off of a ladder. This job needs 2 hands to do, so anything higher than a couple of metres up a ladder isn't suitable and just dangerous to use. My new tool helps me pull a couple of metres of debris that's in the gutter towards me, where I can then deal with it and clear it away. When you're cleaning gutters like this, you want to be pulling rubbish away from the downpipes and taking it out in a bucket to dispose of, rather than trying to wash it to the end and down the pipe. This can easily block the pipe, and if you've got a soak-away system, you really want to be putting as little material into it as possible so it doesn't start blocking up in the future. Once I have the gutter 99% clean, I use my hose just to wash them out and then to make sure that the downpipe is running properly. Number 3 on my list is sorting out the lighting around your house. Now, I don't use these overly too much in the summer because it obviously gets dark so late, but in the winter, quite commonly, these are on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon onwards. So I like to sort these out both in the spring and in the autumn as well. And although I use these GU10 bulbs in these lights that actually say they've got 25,000 hours of life, that's about 13 years with the amount I use them per day. They only last about a year or 2 for me anyway. So I know I've got a few that I need to replace. So this time of year, I go around, clean them all, get all the cobwebs out of the way, polish all the lenses so they're as clean as possible. Then also go around and change any bulbs that are missing, just like this one now. So not only has this bulb gone, but actually the lens inside has come off and is rattling around as well. It's not very good, seeing that they're supposed to last for 25,000 hours. When dealing with outside lights with threads or any outside screws or metal to metal fixings, it's a really good idea to grease them whenever you can. This will ensure that in 6 months' time, after the winter, I can still get into this light fitting without the thread being totally corroded up. This tub of grease I'm using I bought a year ago and it only cost £4, and using it for items like this, it'll last a lifetime and potentially save you from a lot of heartache. With the new lamp installed, the greased cover screws back on with a very comforting, squidgy type feel. Tip number 4 is out in the garden again, as well as clearing up and storing any garden tools or children's toys that you really aren't going to use for many months. I like to empty my garden hose of water and store it inside. It tends to prolong its life. To do this, run the hose out fully and starting at one end while keeping the hose open at the other. You can simply use gravity to push out any water sitting in the pipe. With this hose lock fast reel system I have, it's then really easy to wind up, remove and to store in a garage or shed over the winter, and a lot lighter now that there's no water left in the hose. Still can't believe that's broken. Anyway, lastly, at number 5 is rock salt. Now, rock salt is a type of stuff that the council grits the roads with before it snows and works in the same way on your drive or your paths around your property. It comes in these chunks of sodium chloride, and although it's brown, it's essentially the same salt as you'd use in cooking, but I wouldn't advise putting that on your fish and chips. This gritty texture will give you a non-slip surface before it melts, and when it does hit snow, it'll stop it freezing down to about -5 degrees Celsius. So you can put this down before it snows, or if you're expecting heavy snow, hold off from doing that, clear the snow manually, and then put this down to stop the residual freezing. Although doing it that way, you probably need to put down a lot more, but if it's going to snow heavily, you're going to get through it one way or the other. So just like fencing materials in the summer or toilet rolls in a pandemic, everyone will want their hands on this when it snows. So I think it's probably best to get some ahead of time. It doesn't go off, and you store it in your garage or your shed, and you'll be prepared whenever it does snow, whether it's next week or in 2 years' time. It's easy to buy. You can get it at DIY hardware shops, builders merchants, and it's pretty common in these sort of 20 kilogram bags. Although if you do need a lot more, you can even get it delivered in a 1-ton bulk bag if you have a really large property. So don't say I didn't warn you. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please check out the other ones on my channel and please subscribe. So really upset about that. Until next time, I'll see you then. 25,000 hours? My eye.